Unvarnished Arkansas tells the story of 9 people who lived in Arkansas, and basically it picks controversial people, people about whom there's some questions that maybe can be answered, maybe can't, but people are always complex, and it's always a mistake to try to simplify them and say, well, they did this for just one reason. One of the most interesting people in the book is a woman named Bernie Babcock. She was born in Ohio, but her parents moved to Arkansas when she was a little girl, and she grew up here and lived the rest of her life here in Arkansas, and was involved in political activism fairly early, the temperance movement and women's suffrage. Went to college in Little Rock, although she didn't finish and earn a degree, and was interested in writing. So she started doing research in various things. She was fascinated with Abraham Lincoln and wrote more than one biography of Abraham Lincoln. And at one point she was considered one of the country's best authorities on Lincoln. But she got really upset when people would make fun of Arkansas. The humorist Mencken made all kinds of jokes about Arkansas, and she wanted to prove that Arkansas wasn't so uncivilized and uncultured. So Bernie started a museum. It was a museum of natural history. It had Indian artifacts, it had various kinds of things that were found around the state, had animals on display, stuffed animals, of course. Whatever she could get donated, whatever she could get money raised to buy, she put on display in the museum. It started out just a little storefront here in Little Rock, then it ended up in City Hall. Then the Great Depression came along and they closed down the museum and put all the stuff into storage. A lot of it disappeared. In fact, newspaper writers pulled some of her things out of the garbage when they found them in the alley. But Bernie held on to it, and eventually she ended up at the Arsenal, which is about a mile south of here, south of downtown Little Rock. And she was able to get permission to put the museum back on display in the old U.S. Arsenal of Little Rock. And that's where she put on things like King Crowley, a sculpted piece of sandstone that some people thought was hundreds and hundreds of years old. It actually probably was a 20th century fraud, but she wasn't willing to admit that possibility at the time. And she lived in the basement of the building and basically just claimed the museum space. Now, other community groups used the building, and there actually were lawsuits about which group could use which room, but she fought for the right to put these things on display in the Arsenal building. And she also renamed the park where the building was located, because in 1880, General Douglas MacArthur was born here in Little Rock in the Arsenal building. So she got the place renamed MacArthur Park and got him to come back for the dedication with the new name. The museum that she started is now the Museum of Discovery, which is right here in the River Market district of Arkansas, right close to the Arkansas Studies Institute. And that's where a lot of Bernie's papers are. Some of her letters and some of the work that she did, some of the photographs that she took are in the collections in the Arkansas Studies Institute, which is on the Central Arkansas Library System campus. But she just kept on writing. In fact, she was found in her elderly years, passed away in her cabin up on Petit Jean Mountain with a manuscript in her hand. She's dedicated to writing and telling the story of Arkansas and collecting as much information as she could share about the place.